First of all, the propaganda is getting tiresome. Trump has done a brilliant job. You can't find one thing to criticize him over. And, and Joe Biden had destroyed the economy. It was record low unemployment. So you're being preposterous. No one believes you. Everyone realizes it was the tariffs. They had a perfectly good economy handed to him, and he, at this point, has shattered it to pieces. So I'm getting sick of the propaganda. I'm also getting sick of the, with all due respect, this is idiotic. That's not all due respect. So I'm not sure you have good command of the English language. Okay. All right, then don't say all due respect.
In today's video, Cenk Uygur absolutely destroys Piers Morgan and his MAGA panel in a heated debate on Trump's immigration. On Piers Morgan's show, Cenk goes head-to-head with a panel of right-wingers parroting Trump's hardline immigration spin, and he doesn't just hold his own, he schools them. With facts, history, and moral clarity, Cenk exposes how Trump's immigration agenda is more about cruelty and chaos than real solutions. So let's dive in and watch how Cenk Uygur shuts down Piers Morgan and his MAGA panel in this heated debate.
Second of all, you're lecturing people about how to get elected. Carrie, let's be honest. Let's be honest, Carrie. You and I are not in a position to lecture people on how to get elected, okay? You haven't won a lot of elections, neither have I, okay? So at least I've helped in winning elections. I'm not sure you have. So, and the brother over here in Michigan has actually won an election, but we're conflating two different things, okay? Number one, we're talking about the polling. Look, Trump's down and hurt. It doesn't matter how much you guys spin it. We're going to have that play out. But that's not related to impeachment. Whether he's popular or not has nothing to do with impeachment. So I don't even know why the congressman brought that up, to be honest. And I think that this impeachment thing is way too premature. What, are you going to get enough Republicans on board? There's no way you are, right? On the other hand, are there actual good grounds for it? There are. You're just not going to be able to execute it. The grounds for impeachment are doing things that are illegal or unconstitutional. Has he subverted the will of Congress? Many, many times. They appropriated money, he refuses to spend it. Or he's spending money that they didn't appropriate. Or he's taking powers like the power to tariff that Congress has, or the power to declare war that Congress has. I know that last one every president abuses. But we have massive violations of the Constitution here. The Supreme Court says bring this guy back, Abrego Garcia. Not only that, there was a clear do not deport order, and he violates that order and then admits that it was a mistake, and he still won't bring him back. The problem there isn't immigration, it's due process, which is the cornerstone of Western civilization.
But Cenk,
and Batya and Tim and others, look, we can go back and blame others.
Okay, but look, Michelle Obama piped up about this immigration stuff on X, and I replied to her, and my replies had gazillions of retweets, because all I said was, as far as I'm aware, her own husband deported over 3 million people in 8 years. And no one can persuade me that all of those were done with perfect due process, right? But I don't remember anything like the cacophony of outrage from the left when that was going down. And Obama, I've said this before many times, he was the deporter-in-chief, was his nickname in Mexico. He couldn't get people out of the country fast enough. Why was it fine for Obama? And why do liberals just try and pretend that never happened? And why is it so evil when Trump throws out a lot of people that I would imagine most Americans totally agree with? Yes, there are some. Garcia may well be one or not. We don't really know yet whether he was in this gang or not. If he was, then he deserves to be in the El Salvador hellhole. If he isn't and he's innocent, he deserves to come back. But let's not pretend that most of the people that Trump is kicking out were not on the deportation list already and probably deserve to be thrown out.
Yeah. So, Piers, the beautiful thing about me is that I'm consistent on all these things. So when Obama did that, I criticized them. And in fact, when Obama killed Anwar al-Awlaki without due process, I was all over him. That was outrageous. It was and arguably worse than anything Trump has done.
Now, Cenk makes a strong and much needed point. The conversation isn't just about immigration, it's about due process. While Piers tries to argue that Trump's deportation numbers are somehow justified by the Obama president, Cenk shuts that down quickly by pointing out how he was also critical of Obama, especially when due process was ignored, as in the case of Anwar al-Awlaki. Cenk's core point is this: stripping people of their rights without legal recourse, whether they're citizens, asylum seekers, or even gang suspects, is fundamentally un-American, And he's right. For instance, under Trump, ICE mistakenly deported US citizens like Peter Sean Brown and wrongfully detained thousands. According to a 2019 report by the ACLU, these aren't isolated incidents, they're a pattern of disregard for basic constitutional protections. Piers, on the other hand, downplays this by acting if every deportee under Trump was a gang member or criminal, but that's not just true. The data shows many were long-term residents, parents of US citizen children, and people with no criminal record. Cenk calls it what it is: distraction through demonization, all while eroding due process.
And that's where mainstream media loses all their credibility, and Democratic politicians lose their credibility when they're not even-handed. So that was totally unacceptable. But that doesn't make what Trump is doing acceptable. And Trump has he gone further than Obama in terms of turning people back at the border? When you turn people back at the border, as Trump is doing now and Obama did, that is not unconstitutional. But has he gone further? Yes. Did Obama ignore court orders? No. Did he say we should send American citizens to a foreign country like El Salvador? No. Did Obama say that he'd run for a third term, which is deeply unconstitutional? No. Did Obama kidnap people off the streets of America for criticizing Israel and arrest and deport them? No.
All right, well, hang on. Let me add some.
By the way,
hang on. Let me
finish the thought. There's tons of right-wingers who agree with me. Tucker Carlson agrees. Candace Owens agrees.
Let me add
Joe
something.
Rogan agrees.
All right, hang on. Let me add some things to your list. Did Obama campaign in 08-09 on a ticket of closing Guantanamo Bay because it was an illegal torture chamber and he was a lawyer? Yes. Is it still open? Yes. Did he deport more people pro rata than any president in history? Yes. Did he drop more bombs in a calendar year outside of World War II than America's ever dropped in a year ever? Yes. Did he run illegal drone programs that killed innocent people at weddings? Yes. In other words, there are lots of things on Obama's watch. Yeah, right. So my point is, you've got to look at these things in totality. If I was in America, which I'm not, but I'm a proud, visa holder, and I have a home in America, I look at the success on the southern border as absolutely stunning. And yet the amount of coverage that's getting is almost nothing. And it says to me that the media remains...
But whose fault is that, Piers?
Well, it's the mainstream... to me, it's the mainstream media. Let me bring in Battier here. Battier, it seems to me that the mainstream media...
No, hold on. You asked me a question. Let me answer it real quick, Piers. So, look, in terms of the criticism of mainstream media that's hypocritical, I just pointed it out. But it's not mainstream media that did this. Trump, if he had just focused on closing the border, right now might be at 55% approval rating, or really high. I mentioned that right in the beginning. But instead, he bungled it because he's a serial bungler. And he keeps testing the limits of his power because he's authoritarian by nature. He didn't have to do those 4 or 5 unconstitutional things that I just listed. He did it on purpose. He's the one punching himself in the face. So don't blame media for that. That was all Trump.
Now, while Piers tries to throw Obama under the bus with a laundry list of criticism, some of which are valid, Cenk doesn't flinch. He agrees that Obama's record on deportations and drone strikes deserves scrutiny, but the key distinction is that Obama didn't ignore court orders, didn't deport US citizens, and didn't openly float unconstitutional power grabs like running for a third term or punishing critics. Cenk lays out the difference clearly. Enforcing immigration law is one thing. Undermining due process and constitutional limits is another. For example, Trump's own DHS acknowledged the wrongful deportations of US citizens like a cancer-stricken toddler sent to Honduras in 2019. Trump also violated a court's do not deport order in the Argueta Garcia case, showing outright defiance of judicial authority. Cenk's core message is spot on. Trump would have made immigration enforcement his win, but he went further, flirting with authoritarianism and chaos. That's not on the media, that's on Trump.
You're all going to whataboutisms here, and I can understand why, because Trump's in bad shape. So you're going back to Obama. Look, I agree with Tim on the Anwar al-Awlaki. I'm the guy who brought it up. I wonder if Tim agrees with me on cutting the Pentagon, because Tim, you and I agreed on cutting the Pentagon when I was on his show, And now all of a sudden they're not cutting. They're adding $150 billion. So they're frauds, right? Let's be honest about that, right? So, but we're going to whataboutisms here. We can go back to Grover Cleveland if you guys like, right? We can go back to James Polk if you guys like. But you're trying to distract from what's happening with Trump. I'm perfectly willing to criticize all the other Democrats in the past for all the things that they've done wrong. But right now, we got to rescue the country. And so at this point, there's two different problems. One is that Trump keeps doing things that are unconstitutional. And to your earlier point, Piers, that is not what people voted for. In fact, the reason Trump disavowed Project 2025 was because it was really unpopular. Now that he's actually doing Project 2025, yeah, it's really unpopular.
But what about
That's
this,
not
Cenk?
what
What about
people
this,
wanted.
Cenk?
They just want.
But Cenk, but what about this? Look, I saw what Caroline Levitt said in her statement about 100 days. In his first 100 days, Donald Trump's delivered on hundreds of promises and already accomplished his two most important campaign goals. The border is secure and inflation is ending. The next 100 days will consist of trade deals, peace deals, and tax cuts. More American greatness on its way. Now, putting aside any partisan kind of flavor to all this, and putting aside that clearly right now things look quite bad for Trump, I could easily see a situation in 100 days' time, maybe not quite as quick as that, but certainly not far off it, where he might well have got a number of advantageous trade deals done, including China, where he could have forged peace in Ukraine, bringing an end to that war, and might well have done the same in Gaza, in which case he would be odds on to win the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, this is not, in other words, it's all very turbulent, it's all very chaotic, but I could absolutely see a pathway to that all happening in the next few months. It could happen.
What if he
what if he turned into Santa Claus?
Well,
yeah, what if he turned into Santa Claus?
Which part of that do you think may not happen?
Out presents to everybody?
Yeah, but which part of that may not happen?
I think all of it might not happen. In fact, Piers, I think absolutely none of that is going to happen. That's why I formed Rebellion PAC to give people a left-wing populist alternative. Real economic populism. People should go check out rebellionpac.com because we've got guys like Ro Khanna, Richard Ojeda, and other people who are actual populists who are going to do the things that Trump promised on the economic end and has not delivered. So, Piers, could he do one or two trade deals and then call it a day and pretend that he got a victory? He could, but it wasn't a victory. And if he keeps these tariffs on with China and others, soon we're going to have empty shelves. And all of this bloviating is going to be totally irrelevant because once those empty shelves hit or the higher prices hit, I mean, we had the stock market downturn. That's not even the big problem. He's already hit an iceberg with that. But that's the tip. The actual iceberg is the American people. And when their prices start going up and when they start seeing empty shelves, they're going to be furious because it's the exact opposite of what they voted for.
Cenk lays it all out. Trump's immigration and economic policies are a mess wrapped in right-wing spin, while Piers tries to float a hypothetical future where Trump secures trade deals, ends wars, and maybe even snags a Nobel Peace Prize. Cenk calls it what it is. Wishful thinking bordering on fantasy. Cenk doesn't just push back, he brings receipts. Trump hasn't delivered for working Americans. Instead of fixing inflation, his tariff threats are already rattling markets and could soon lead to supply shortages and higher prices. That's not populism, it's chaos dressed up in press releases. And while the MAGA crowd cheers claims about a secure border, Trump is simultaneously testing constitutional limits with due process violations and expanding military spending by $150 billion, despite promising to cut the Pentagon. Cenk's main point: if voters wanted real populism, fair wages, affordable goods, and less foreign entanglement, Trump isn't delivering. He's doing performative politics and pandering to the base, not offering real solutions. As Cenk puts it, people didn't vote for Project 2025. They wanted results, not authoritarian stunts. Bottom line, Trump's headline-grabbing stunts won't hold up when families see rising prices and empty shelves. Cenk's right. Populist promises mean nothing without results. Pause. Are you getting tired of getting half the story from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite. How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, left, right, and center are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights into media bias and political trends. Stay informed, think for yourself, and check out Ground News in the description down below.